Thank you for joining us for another episode of Dare to Date Me, where we dive into dating, the realm of it, what's going on in today's day and age, how to do it. A lot of people have questions like what works for one person will definitely not work for another. And today we have a special guest on our show today, Maria Lynette. Maria is a dating with intention coach. I love the fact that you choose the words clarity and alignment for what you do with your clients.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about what you choose to do with your clients when they come to you.
The main thing that we first look at is identifying who they are and what they want in a relationship, because you've got to know who you are before you're going to know how to match a partner with that, right? So we get really clear on who they are, what they want, what their values are, their goals for a relationship, their vision for a relationship, their lifestyle preferences. And I really teach them the emotional maturity that they need to have, as well as the questions that go along matching, to know how to vet for a partner for true long-term compatibility. Because let's be honest, chemistry, it's great and we need it, but it only lasts temporarily. It's not a long-term, sustainable thing. So you need to make sure that you're in alignment and you have long-term compatibility for a relationship to work.
How long do you think figuring out your alignment with your person takes?
It really depends on your time, right? How much time you can invest. I mean, a lot of times I explain to people they need to take at least 60 to 90 days before they really want to define a relationship. And you don't necessarily need to put a name or a label or define the actual relationship, but you definitely can define the trajectory of your relationship. You can get clear on where you're trying to go. And then in that time, like one of the questions I have clients to ask is that I'm dating with alignment and with intention. I'm trying to find a person that matches, my values and my vision for a relationship. Are you open to seeking whether or not we have that compatibility?
Sure.
And then, we go through what their priorities are as far as values, and we have specific questions that they ask each one. And sometimes it really just depends on how often you're talking to someone, right?
That leads us down a whole nother pathway. How often should someone date within a week? What does a week time frame look like? Because I know in relationships, that friends of mine have gotten into, they've gone out with someone on Friday night and they had a great time. They can't wait to see him. So Saturday night they're going out with him again, right? And then Sunday they're like hitting it up for brunch. And then during the week they're like, oh, took off Monday. I have a whole day to myself. But then Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're with this person again. And so you go from 0 to 100.
Right. Yeah.
Is that healthy?
I would say that what you're describing gets into attachment styles. So you have secure attachment, and you have avoidant attachment, and you have anxious attachment. And each of them, have different little branch ways of what that looks like. But someone who is not secure in themselves is someone who's needy. They feel anxious when the person's not around. And, do they like me? Do they want me? Oh, they didn't text me back, or they didn't call me back right away after the date, or they didn't ask for the second date. Does that mean they don't like me? Like, your mind is just going everywhere, right? That is an anxious attachment style. So I would definitely say that you need to pace yourself, because you need the time for your emotional ability, you to regulate and evaluate. One of the processes that I take my clients through, and this is actually where I started and how I really got clear on this dating alignment method, was after I realized I'm repeating these patterns over and over and over again, different face, different name, but same toxic crap, right? Was I started to take a look at myself. And what I did was I got my journal out. I drew a line down the page. On one side, I wrote out all the great things about them that I liked. Oh, this is good. Check, check, check. On the other side, everything that I was like, I have a question there. That's a question mark. That's an orange flag, maybe a red flag, not really sure. And also identifying the emotions that I was feeling when I was with them, when I wasn't with them, when I would talk to them or text them. And any of those little questions and concerns, those are the areas I would dig into to get clarity.
So let's talk about that. Do you dig into that on a conversation? Texting, everybody texts all the time. Yeah. I don't want to go into an in-depth conversation about anything that I possibly could feel like it's not a green flag. How do we get past that texting phase where you're like, can you just call me because I want to talk to you about a couple things?
You have to let people know, look, a text is for one or two quick little thing. And after 2 text messages, that's it. Pick up the phone and call, because you can't keep writing and doing all that's the disconnect that we keep getting with everybody. Is that's that one step off of, I think, of disconnecting with that human interaction that we need to have.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking about this anxiety characteristic that people have, men and women, as far as when they meet somebody, I think a lot of that has been built up because of societal norms or societal expectations about you're supposed to feel this way when somebody has interest in you. And we're setting ourselves up for failure, I think, if we're going to have ourselves be anxious every time somebody looks at us and think that this is going to be the one or it's just going to be that. That's what creates that anxiety, I think, in a lot of people. It's like, let it be and be yourself.
What you guys are actually describing right now is a communication style, and it needs to be discussed. You need to have clarity around this too. Have I said clarity enough yet?
Clarity.
You need to have clarity. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have a preference when it comes to communication. Couple text messages, and then let's move it to the phone.
Right.
Someone else may not. So you need to ask, you need to get clarity around what is your communication style. Are you seeking a long-term committed relationship, and what does that look like in your everyday life? Are you the guy that's going to send me good morning texts and good night texts, but we're not going to have any deep conversations? Or
Right.
are you the guy that's busy working, right, putting in your 9 to 5, and I'm only going to hear from you in the evenings, but those conversations are going to be deep, right?
Right.
We're going to talk about good stuff.
Right.
When are we going to move to the phone?
So here's the question on that. So
Right.
you meet someone, you have a great time with them, you connect on so many levels. You know, they don't necessarily live in your town because I live on an island out in, northern Arizona, basically. And you have these in-depth conversations to get to know someone where we speak for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, and you cross over barriers, you talk about everything. And then you get a little deeper into the relationship and you realize that was just blown smoke up my you-know-what.
Yeah.
Because you are not the person that's following through on any of those things. So you call it early, right? And then they're like, no, that's not what I meant. And then they backstep a little bit. So you have the clarity. When do you call it over? When do you make that decision? When do you just say to someone, hey, you know what? This isn't going to work for me. And I ask that because I think I see so many people staying in a situation to be in a relationship, to feel that they have someone there for them.
But
Yeah.
that person really isn't there for them if it's not going to be comfortable and it's not
Right.
going to be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like what we mentioned earlier about, don't weaken your standards just to have someone's presence, there. That's like that. These are a lot of times people aren't emotionally ready for relationships. They have deeper needs. They're insecure, lacking confidence. Really and truly, when it comes to dating and finding a partner for a long-term committed relationship, you really need to be confident in yourself, because loneliness seeks attention, but worthiness attracts respect.
I love that.
You have to know and feel your worthiness, not chasing, not over-explaining, right? Overreaching, like trying to convince someone else of what you want.
Or feel that you're just lucky because somebody paid attention to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's an emotional disconnect that needs the healing that needs to be there. So you really do need to first and foremost have that pacing, the proper pacing that you're allowing a relationship to build naturally, so that you have the time to verify that their actions match their words.
So what about the men that date right after a divorce, and women? I don't want to just say men only. What about the men and women that date right after a divorce? They haven't given themselves the opportunity to heal. They jump right into another relationship, and because it's comfortable for them to have that person that's just always going to be there.
Right.
I've always found out that those are never going to last, and they're just not mentally prepared for what it takes to be fully engaged in a relationship.
It's the rebound, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, most divorce counselors and group sessions that you're going to go through after divorce are all going to tell you that you need at least 6 months to a year to emotionally heal after that relationship. And I hear a lot of people say, well, we've been separated for 3 years, because we know nowadays divorce
Right.
doesn't happen overnight, right?
Right.
So it can take a while.
Personal knowledge. It does not happen overnight.
It doesn't. But really and truly, it's really about analyzing their emotional maturity.
Okay.
A person should be able to identify whether or not this person is clinging on to them because they're just needy of having someone's love and attention, or whether they're really secure in their life.
Well, some people, I guess, depending on how long they were together with somebody else, are just used to that person being there. And that's the thing. Some people are just looking for that to fill that void. But like with any relationship, they need to mourn the loss of whatever it is that's going on.
Yes.
You have to go through those emotional steps and end and finish where it's been, so that you can get to that healing and that moving on to the next part. Because you can't just keep trying to put that square peg into a round hole.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the difference between loneliness and solitude. Right. So after a bad breakup, after a divorce, you need to be able to get to a point where you can be alone and be comfortable with that. In solitude, it's a choice. It's not loneliness from a lack. Right. Because that emotional confidence and groundedness and security is where you're going to attract another secure partner. We don't attract what we want. We attract who we are. So if a person is emotionally unhealthy, they're going to attract another person who's an emotionally unhealthy.
And those lonely people are just going to they're going to get whatever's going to give them the immediate attention that they're looking for.
Yes, 100%.
And it might not be a bad thing for a need for right now, because you got to have that pancake relationship, the one that looks good, but it tastes good, but doesn't look as good as the rest of them. So, which happens. But it's a step, I think, to get to where you need to go to. It's never going to happen overnight, and you're not going to have the first date going to be with somebody that's going to be emotionally secure, because there's very few of them out there.
Speaking of, secure, when it comes to, us wanting we always say that we want someone who's stable. Stability requires patience. Stability doesn't happen overnight. Right. So if you're someone who's anxious, you're trying to rush something along, and yet you're professing to the world that you want someone who's stable, financially stable and emotionally stable, but you're not, because you're trying to rush. Stability takes its time to really vet properly in a relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 90 days. Sometimes not even in 6 months.
Right. It's definitely a process.
It's a process.
So for me, I've been married twice. I have no desire to be legally bound to anyone for the rest of my life again. Now, that's not saying that I am not open to a relationship with someone for the rest of my life. That I could do. I'm just saying I would never sign a legal document getting married again.
Well, commitment is commitment. I mean, you have to understand that however your level or whatever your definition of commitment's going to be, you just both have to be on the same page. You can't be committed to somebody and somebody else saying they're committed to somebody, and then they're maybe not, because they want to use that piece of paper as leverage.
Right.
Then you're in a whole different, muddy water.
Let's address something else, fear. So part of the reason why we have trouble after multiple marriages, let's just give some stats for just a minute. So research shows that 40% of first marriages end in divorce. It increases. 61% of second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages end in divorce.
Okay,
What does that tell you?
I just got to ask, what do you get for 6?
I know. I was waiting for that question. I was like, what about murder?
So the reality is, we have these fears from these past relationships, just like you're talking about. You don't want to sign that contract again, right?
Right.
Because why?
I can be totally committed to someone without, I don't need your last name. I like my last name. I would never change my name again. I could just tell you that.
Right.
I don't feel, for me, that's the right avenue. But could I be in a long-term committed relationship with someone that I absolutely loved?
Right.
Yes.
100%.
Well, that's just it. So let's end it on that whatever anybody's definition of commitment is, and but they have to just be honest and explain that to somebody. But you're
Wait,
still
what's
looking-
the word we're going to use? Clarity. I'm going to be extremely...
Yes. You just have
Clarity.
you just have to be honest and upfront. I think no matter what, I think that's the most important thing, and that's what you're bringing to us now, and letting people understand that that's the most important thing, no matter how you're dating, is just being honest with
Exactly.
one another.
Yeah.
Same conversation you're talking about the committed part.
Right.
You know, what does that look like
The
to you?
commitment doesn't scare me. The piece of paper does.
Yes, it doesn't look like a marriage contract. It looks
Right.
like two people respecting and honoring each other
Right.
and not
Exactly.
abandoning each other and
Every
having
day.
tough
Right.
conversations.
Having
Right.
the tough ones are going to get us through.
yes.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm excited to also open the opportunity to our listeners that you've offered a great promotion for them.
Yes.
You want to share that with us?
Yes, so your listeners can find me on theoliveave.com. And if they also reach out to me on Facebook under Maria Lynette and send me a private message to say they heard this message on Dare to Date Me, I'm going to offer them a 15-minute clarity call for free to just see whether or not we're in alignment, right? And if I
Perfect.
can actually help them. And then I'll also offer, if we are, I'll offer them a free 90-minute session.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
That's amazing. Thank you for your generosity.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. I know that you have the dating alignment method, which we're going to dig deeper into in additional segments down the road. Thank you for your time today. We had an amazing time visit with you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.